I covered every single expense for my sister's lavish dream wedding without complaining. But when her soon-to-be in-laws said I shouldn't attend because I'd outshine the bride, I didn't argue. I just quietly canceled everything I paid for and let them figure out how to fund their perfect day without me. I simply reached out to every vendor and called off all arrangements. They only realized what I had done when guests began arriving at an empty, locked venue. My name is Ryan. I'm 36, and for as long as I can recall, I've been the one in our family who steps in when things unravel. You know the type: reserved, dependable, the one who takes out their credit card when calamity strikes, the one who smooths over disagreements, who arrives early and stays late, even if no one acknowledges it. I never sought praise or recognition. I simply believe that's what family does, sticks together, especially when it's inconvenient. That perspective remained with me for many years, even when I felt like little more than an afterthought. In every family photograph, I was the extra person at the edge, barely visible, while my younger sister Brooke stood front and center, flanked by our parents, as if they revolved around her. Brooke had always been the main attraction, ever since she was a child. The world seemed to align with her. Her dance recitals, her perfect grades, the university she was accepted into, the boy she was dating. The family's attention never shifted. So when she became engaged to Tyler, a man from a distinguished family whose surname apparently held significance, it felt less like a wedding and more like a royal event. Overnight, everything centered on impressing his relatives. My mother was ecstatic. She kept saying this wedding was our opportunity to prove we belonged in their circle, that we could meet their standards. I mostly remained quiet, nodded when expected, and offered help where I could. I wasn't attempting to cause trouble. When the engagement was officially announced, Brooke contacted me first, but not to share her excitement or ask me to be a part of the wedding party. She needed funds to secure the location. It's just to reserve the date, she explained. Tyler's parents are covering the rest. You'll be reimbursed. She never inquired if I was agreeable to it. She just knew I could afford it, and that was sufficient. So, like a fool, I transferred $7,500 to her that very evening without a second thought. Then came the catering mess. She switched suppliers at the last minute because the original one wasn't refined enough. One night, at 11:30 p.m., she called me in tears. Apparently, Tyler's mother had threatened to relocate the entire event to a private country club if the food wasn't up to standard. So, I intervened and covered the difference. Another $5,200 gone. Then came the photographer, then the flowers, then a high-end audio setup for the ceremony. Apparently, the string quartet required specialized microphones for optimal acoustics. Bit by bit, the wedding transformed into something far grander than anything Brooke could have imagined on her own, and I just kept signing the checks, asking no questions. Not until I overheard Mom on a family video call. She was raving about how generous Tyler's parents had been, how fortunate Brooke was, how they had spared no expense for her little girl. I waited for even a brief mention of myself, a passing comment. Nothing. I said nothing. That silence became customary. I wasn't invited to the cake tasting, or the dress fitting, or the rehearsal dinner planning. When I inquired about these events, Mom dismissed me. Oh, it's just for immediate family, she told me once. Another time she said, Ryan, you wouldn't enjoy that stuff anyway. It's all silly and girly. I kept reminding myself that I didn't care, that I wasn't doing this for acknowledgement, but it still stung. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, I received a text, not a phone call, just a short, cold message from Mom. You're not coming to the wedding. Brooke's in-laws think it's best if you sit this one out. No hard feelings. I stared at the screen, attempting to comprehend what I was reading. I thought perhaps it was a poorly phrased joke. Maybe she meant I didn't need to be formally dressed or something. But no. I called her, straight to voicemail. I tried Brooke, same result. I texted them both, no response. 3 hours later, Mom followed up with another message. Please respect their wishes. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal? I sat in the darkness with my phone in my hand, reflecting on every single dollar I'd spent, every event I was excluded from, all the times I ignored that inner voice whispering that something wasn't right. I thought back to the first time Brooke asked for money. She was 20, behind on rent. I helped without hesitation. I remembered the time Dad's water heater broke, and I covered the cost because his seasonal job hadn't paid out yet. I thought about the birthdays I'd spent alone because everyone else had plans or simply forgot. And I thought about a voicemail I got from Aunt Denise last year. You're the glue holding this family together, you know that? Funny, it turns out I wasn't even worth a blurry spot in a wedding photo. I texted one line in reply. Got it. No arguments, no pleading, no guilt trips, just quiet acceptance. Then I opened my laptop. First thing I did was call the venue. The reservation was under my name. I had signed a contract and paid the deposit. I asked what would happen if I canceled. The person on the phone was kind, but sounded slightly puzzled. You're still within the cancellation window, they said. You'll receive a partial refund, and the date will be released. I told them to cancel it, and just like that, it was over. Next came the caterer. Same situation as the venue. The payment details were mine, the contract under my name. I gave them a call and asked about their cancellation policy. They confirmed I'd receive a partial refund, so I pulled the plug. The photographer was canceled, the DJ gone, even the florist was let go. Honestly, they sounded more relieved than surprised. Apparently, Brooke had been wearing them down with constant revisions, changing details every other day. They admitted they were running out of patience. By the time I was finished, every single element they thought was secured had quietly vanished. And I didn't tell a soul. Not a single word. I let the silence speak for me. Days went by, a full week in fact. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday, and I figured it was just a matter of time before reality caught up to them, though it wasn't going to come from me. Part of me wondered if they were too engrossed in their fantasy to notice, or just too arrogant to believe I'd actually walk away. That's the drawback of being the dependable one. People start assuming you'll appear no matter how many times they shut the door in your face. Strangely enough, that silence felt peaceful, at least until the day of the wedding. That morning, I decided to disconnect completely. I left my phone at home and went for a long walk. No messages, no updates, just the sound of leaves crunching under my boots and the faint hum of city traffic in the distance. I didn't rush back. I desired space, distance from the turmoil I knew was unfolding in real time, because I knew exactly what was happening. Guests arriving at a locked building, no chairs, no catering, no music, not even flowers. I could practically envision Tyler's mother pacing furiously, Brooke in tears, my mother frantically calling, her voice dripping with panic. When I finally got home, my phone looked like it had burst. 73 missed calls, 52 unread texts, 8 voicemails. The top message was from Mom. Ryan, what did you do? People are arriving and there's nothing here. The venue's locked. No one's answering. Call me. Right underneath, Brooke. This isn't funny. Fix this. Then Tyler. My parents are furious. You better hope I don't see you today. I didn't reply to any of them. I just sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the screen as if it were written in an unfamiliar language. All this frantic energy, this sudden urgency. Where was it when I was being excluded? I played the first voicemail. Mom's voice was breathless, as if she were pacing as she spoke. Ryan, I don't know what you're trying to pull, but this isn't okay. People flew in for this. Do you understand how bad this looks? We need you to call the venue immediately. Next came Brooke. Her voice trembled, not with sadness, but with barely contained fury. I cannot believe you do this to me after everything I've done for you. You're ruining the most important day of my life. Everything she's done for me. I almost laughed. I hovered over the next voicemail, but didn't press play. I already knew what it would be. More blame, more accusations, more twisting things around to make me the antagonist. As if I were the one at fault for not quietly financing their fantasy and disappearing like an obedient ATM. But the most surprising part? I wasn't angry, not anymore. For the first time in years, I felt liberated, as if I had finally released a burden I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. This wasn't about the money. It never truly was. It was about being acknowledged, being treated as if I mattered as a person, not a wallet, as someone with boundaries, with feelings, with worth beyond what I could pay for. I made myself a coffee and stepped out onto my small balcony. The sun was shining. The air was crisp. Traffic hummed in the distance. It felt like any ordinary Saturday, except for me. It felt like a fresh start. Around noon, the texts began again. I suppose the guests had finally made it to the venue and understood what was happening. Some were from cousins I hadn't heard from in years, asking what had occurred, demanding explanations. A few outright accused me of ruining Brooke's life. But then I saw one from Aunt Denise, Dad's sister, one of the few who had always treated me like a real human being. I heard what happened. I'm so sorry they treated you like that. If you need anything, I'm here. That was the only message I replied to. Later that day, the aftermath spilled onto social media. Photos appeared. Guests and formal were awkwardly standing outside a locked venue. One showed a paper sign taped to the gate. Closed for private event, still hanging there, untouched. Someone had recorded a video of Tyler arguing with a parking lot attendant. No food trucks, no flowers, no quartet, just chaos and confusion spreading like wildfire. A guy I went to high school with sent me a link to a Facebook post from one of Tyler's relatives, a full-blown rant about entitled families and how some people just can't handle throwing a proper wedding. It hinted at sabotage, claiming someone had ruined a beautiful day out of jealousy because they couldn't stand not being the center of attention. I didn't respond. Let them construct whatever narrative helps them sleep at night. Then at 4:48 p.m., my phone rang again. This time I answered. It was Mom. Her voice was thin, strained, not angry, just urgent, maybe even desperate. "Ryan," she said. I said nothing. "We're at the hotel now. Brooke is hysterical. Tyler's parents are furious. This is a disaster. You can't just vanish like this. Why would you do something so cruel?" I let out a long breath, my grip on the phone tightening. "You told me I wasn't invited," I said calmly. "I respected that." "That's not what I meant," she snapped. "You knew it wasn't personal." "It felt personal to me," I replied. There was a long pause. In the background, muffled voices, someone crying, perhaps Brooke screaming. Then Mom's voice returned, softer this time. "You didn't have to destroy everything." "I didn't destroy anything," I said. "I just stopped paying for it." Another silence. Then, barely a whisper. "Ryan, they think you did this to punish her." I let that settle in the air. "No," I said. "This was me finally choosing myself." She tried to interrupt, but I didn't let her. "Mom, I stayed quiet when you left me out of everything. The tastings, the planning, the rehearsal dinner, not even a seat at the wedding. I gave money, I gave time, I gave my full support. And what did I get in return? A cold, impersonal text, as if I were an inconvenience, a problem to be quietly erased. That wasn't my decision," I told her. "You signed off on that." She went silent again. "You don't get to pick and choose when I matter," I said. "You don't get to use me when it's convenient, then toss me aside when it isn't." "I'm your mother," she said softly. "And I'm your son," I answered, sharper than I intended. Funny how that word only matters when you need a check written. I heard the slightest catch in her breath, fragile, cracking. "Ryan, what are we supposed to do now?" I didn't respond right away. I stared out at the skyline, the sun melting behind the rooftops, casting everything in that golden light that always made me feel both small and substantial at the same time, anchored. Finally, I said, "I don't know, Mom, but I'm not going to be your safety net anymore." Then I hung up, and I knew right then, this was only the beginning. The backlash would come. Tyler's family would become more vocal. Brooke would fall apart. My mom would spiral. I could already imagine the narrative they'd construct, portraying me as the villain who ruined the fairy tale ending. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care. I had drawn a line, and the real storm hadn't even started yet. The calls didn't cease. They simply changed, shifting from frantic to icy, from pleading to measured and clinical. The next day, Tyler's father left me a voicemail. His tone was calm, clipped, cold. He mentioned legal repercussions and a breach of verbal agreement, as if I were some unpaid vendor, not the human being who had financed the fantasy his son married into. It was absurd. I could practically picture him, Bluetooth headset on, golf club in hand, barking into his phone as if he were ordering a martini at the country club. I didn't reply, didn't even flinch. Let them try and sue me for canceling services I paid for. Let them sit in some polished office and explain how they uninvited the man who funded the wedding and still expected him to appear like a human credit card on autopilot. That week, I unplugged. No social media, no family group chats, no texts, no noise. I needed air, I needed stillness. I stayed local, went to the gym in the mornings, sat in quiet cafes with books I'd meant to read for years, walked streets I usually drove past without noticing. No one knew me, no one stopped me, and I liked it that way. It felt like shedding layers I never asked to wear, the background sibling, the silent support, the always available ATM. But silence never lasts forever. 6 days after the wedding imploded, the stillness fractured. It was early evening. I had just sat down with takeout when the buzzer rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. My building has a camera at the entrance, so I tapped the screen, expecting a lost delivery person. It was Brooke. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, makeup smudged. She looked exhausted, arms wrapped around herself as if she were trying to hold something broken together. In one hand, she held her phone, screen still lit as if she'd been rereading a message over and over. She rang again, then looked straight into the camera. "Ryan," she said, her voice barely audible. "I know you're watching." I froze. I didn't feel anger, not pity either, just this strange mix of emotions, muted, tangled, edged with something sharp I couldn't quite name. "I need to talk to you," she said, voice cracking. "Please." After a moment, I pressed the door release. The lock clicked. Minutes later, she stood in my hallway, same guarded posture, same darting eyes, as if she didn't quite recognize the space I called home. I didn't offer a drink, didn't gesture to a chair. I leaned against the wall and waited. She didn't speak at first, just looked at me. "You really did it," she said finally, as if she still couldn't grasp it. I said nothing. "You actually canceled everything." "Yep. You didn't even tell us." You told me I wasn't welcome. Her mouth twitched. Guilt, irritation, I couldn't tell. That wasn't me, that was Mom. But you didn't stop her. She opened her mouth to object, then stopped. It's not like I could. You could have called or texted. You could have said, Ryan, I want you there. But you didn't. She dropped her gaze. I thought, she began. I thought you'd show up anyway. That stung more than I wanted it to. Not because I considered going, I hadn't. But because it confirmed everything I suspected. They never saw me as a person, just a constant, a resource, someone who always showed up, paid up, and kept quiet. Were you ever planning to pay me back? I asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. Then, soft and honest, no, just that. I exhaled slowly. Then why are you here, Brooke? She looked up, meeting my eyes. I don't know. And I believed her. The silence stretched between us. I watched her, saw the tension in her jaw, the conflict behind her eyes. She looked smaller, not physically, just diminished, as if the spotlight she'd carried her whole life had finally extinguished. Do you regret it? I asked. She flinched. What, the wedding? No, the text. Her lip trembled. I didn't write it, she said, but I didn't stop it either. I let it be sent. That was probably as close to an apology as I'd ever get. I nodded once. Okay. She stepped forward slightly, as if she was about to say more, then her phone vibrated. She glanced down, read the screen, then looked back up. Tyler's family thinks you're unstable, she said, as if it barely mattered. Let them. You're not going to defend yourself? No. Her brows drew together. Why not? I shrugged. Because I don't owe them anything, not anymore. Not you, not Mom, not anyone who saw me as a walking wallet. Brooke stepped back, her arms dropping slowly to her sides. So that's it, she asked. You're just done? I held her gaze. No, I said. I'm just finally even. She didn't answer. She just stood in the middle of my apartment, scanning the room as if she were searching for something, some anchor to grasp onto. But there was nothing left. No guilt, no comfort, not even anger. Just stillness, the kind that settles in when you stop waiting for closure and start creating your own. I think it's time you go, I told her. She stood still for a moment, as if she was waiting for something more, some line, some opening, some last thread to cling to. Then she gave a small nod, turned, and walked to the door. Just before stepping out, she paused with her hand on the knob. I don't know how we come back from this, she said. I stayed silent. She walked out, and for the first time in my life, I didn't follow her. After Brooke left, the stillness in my apartment settled like dust. I stood there, staring at the closed door, half expecting her to knock again, to return with some last-minute monologue, to rewrite the ending. But she didn't. She walked away, and this time I let her. That night, something shifted within me. Brooke hadn't been the only one to make a choice, so had I. I had finally chosen to stop playing the role they assigned me. No more invisible fixer. No more silent benefactor funding everyone else's dreams. No more standing in the shadows waiting for a half-hearted apology that was never coming. It had to conclude, not in fire, not in fury, but in clarity and finality. The next morning, I woke up early, brewed a strong cup of coffee, and sat down at my laptop. And I started typing. The message wasn't for Brooke or Mom or Tyler's image-obsessed family. It was for everyone. Every aunt, cousin, second cousin, people who only recalled my name when it appeared on a place card or in an obituary. The subject line was simple, a few things you should know. I laid it all out, calmly, plainly, truthfully. No bitterness, just facts. I told them I had funded the majority of the wedding, $124,300 spread across deposits, upgrades, last-minute rescues. I told them I stepped up because I was asked, because they said they needed me. And after all that, I was told I wasn't welcome by my own family to satisfy someone else's expectations. I explained that I canceled only the services that were in my name, paid with my money, and tied to my legal responsibility, because I had been told clearly and coldly to stay away. No breakdown, no outburst, just a final, quiet refusal to play along anymore. To avoid confusion or misinterpretation, I attached receipts, confirmations, contracts, screenshots. Not to humiliate anyone, just to show the truth in black and white. And I ended with this. I don't expect anyone to take sides. I just want you to understand mine, clearly, and without the usual years of rewriting that follow moments like this. I wish Brooke and Tyler well, truly, but I will no longer be part of their story. I had finished, closed the laptop, and walked away. I didn't wait for replies. I didn't care who gossiped, who shrugged, who whispered the word bitter behind a hand. This wasn't for applause, it was for peace. By noon, the messages started, but not the ones I expected. They were soft, hesitant, almost sheepish. A few cousins I barely knew reached out. I had no idea, man. I'm sorry. If you're ever around, let's grab a drink. We always knew they treated you differently. We didn't say anything. That's on us. I didn't respond to most of them. I appreciated the words, truly, but this wasn't about collecting sympathy or building a new fan club. This wasn't about burning bridges. It was about finally stepping off the bridge I was always expected to hold up. Of course, eventually my mother replied. A long email, half excuse, half guilt trip. We didn't mean for it to go this far. There was so much pressure from Tyler's family. You should have communicated more clearly. Family means forgiveness. And then the inevitable heartstring pull. Your father would have been devastated to see us like this. I didn't finish reading it. I archived the message and blocked her number, not out of spite, not out of rage. I just had nothing left to give. Then, a week later, came the final impact, and I didn't even see it coming. My Aunt Denise called, laughing so hard she could barely get the words out. Someone from Tyler's extended family, some distant cousin, had posted the full wedding disaster on Facebook. Every detail, every embarrassment. A local gossip blog picked it up, then a regional outlet ran the headline. Lavish wedding implodes. Six-figure celebration ends in locked venue and angry guests. Tyler's family was livid, mortified, their carefully crafted image shattered overnight. There was talk of legal action, but it went nowhere. Every contract was in my name, every step within my rights. Apparently, Tyler began pulling away from Brooke soon after. Tension, rumors, fights, quiet bitterness turned to daily friction. 6 months later, they filed for divorce. I didn't celebrate. Divorce is sad, even for people who live superficial lives. But privately, I admitted something I had known deep down from the start. That marriage was never meant to last. It was built on appearances, on entitlement, on illusion. And when the tide came in, they realized there was no foundation beneath them. As for me, I moved on. I changed jobs, left the city I grew up in, started over somewhere I wasn't known as Brooke's brother or the guy who always helps. Life became smaller, quieter, but it became mine. I stopped answering calls born of guilt. I stopped fixing problems I didn't create. I stopped waiting for people to treat me as if I mattered. Instead, I built something new. I traveled, taught myself photography, made friends who saw me, not what I could give them. And sometimes, late at night, I'd think about my old family. I'd wonder if they ever truly understood why I left. If during some quiet holiday dinner someone glanced at an empty chair and whispered, "He changed, he got cold." Maybe they did. Maybe they rewrote the story as families like that always do. But it didn't matter. I wasn't their ghost anymore. I was free, and for the first time, not because they let me go, but because I chose to walk away. And I never looked back.